Hello, everyone. I'm back. I'm so excited already. You see, the truth is, we're reading Scent of Water and we're almost done. So please, if you're just joining for the first time or just watching for the first time, please make sure you check the other videos that I've done reading. Start from the very beginning, chapter 1 to 5, right? That's how to do it. Okay, so welcome everyone again. We are reading Scent of Water by Moi, Simisola Ogunyinka. And this book was chosen, was requested, was voted to be the very first that I'll be reading. And Scent of Water is one of my favorite stories of all times. I got it through a dream. I think I would say that was the very first, this was the very first novel that I wrote through a dream. I've written tons of others since then, some, inspired by a dream, and some by so many other things. And my tea for today's reading is that you should not, as a writer, toss ideas away, toss things away, overlook things. As a writer, you're supposed to be, very um, intentional, very observant of things around you. A story can come from anywhere, and so, if you have a funny dream that you don't even understand what that funny dream is about, it could be a story, it could be a best selling novel that has been revealed to you in a dream. So, that's my tea for today. Don't toss away ideas, be observant. All right, so we're going to read Scent of Water. I have my kombucha again, you can't see it, but is that guava kombucha. I like it so much. And then of course I have my water because water is the one that quenches thirsts. All right, we are almost done, and let me say we're going to be finishing this book tomorrow by God's grace. I'm going to finish reading this book tomorrow. We'll do 6 chapters today and 5 tomorrow, and we'll be done. And I'm so excited. I'm happy that you're joining us. I'm happy that you're reading with me or listening with me, as we'll say. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, Biko, do so. Mbok, let me speak the language of Esam's language. Mbok, please subscribe to the channel, like, share, comment. Let's keep this ministry moving. Let's keep it moving to the permanent side. Okay. All right. I'm done goofing around. Let's read. Chapter 37. Ayo sat on the edge of the king size bed in the guest room at the house in Dolphin Estate and chewed on his fingers. Mike tried to ignore him as he prepared to leave the house for an appointment he had. He'd been around for a month and it had been tough. Many of his old acquaintances were simply diplomatic, many stalled. He realized quickly he would have to start like a fresher. Even his emergency numbers yielded nothing. Alariwo's numbers were constantly switched off. Mike felt he was out of the town. A few others were never available. Some gave him appointments they didn't keep. Mike was optimistic. If it will get better, then it better be rough at the beginning. Mrs. Okoro and Adelby had been wonderful, showing them unlimited warmth and acceptance. Ayo felt free and at home around them and only sulked when he was alone with his father. Mike wanted him to open up on his own. Mrs. Okoro and Adelby, on their own, understood the plight of the little boy and did all they could to help. They also made some contacts for Mike. Lagos was just still Lagos. Nothing like a free lunch. I know a property merchant, Adobe said. He sold this house to us about a year before Dad died. His mother lived here, and when the old lady died, he decided to sell. What's his name? I might know him, Mike replied. They were relaxing on the lounge in the balcony. The two had formed the habit to sit out and chat in the evenings before going to sleep. Shakes, that's his business name, what everyone calls him, but he's Igbo too. He was a business acquaintance of Dad's. I know him very well. In our circle, we call him Shylocks. Mike laughed and Adalbi smiled. He's very shrewd. You call him. If he can help. Nah. I couldn't even if I tried, without all her arrogance. Mike sat on the bed beside Ayo and pulled his shoes off on. Daddy, the boy whispered. It was the first time he would call him that. The first time he would talk to him. The first time he would talk to him when they were alone. Mike sat up, all ears. Yes, son, dear. When am I going back to school? Mike sighed. He truly didn't know. He learned that Ayo attended a local school in his grandparents' neighborhood. Son, I won't deceive you. I don't know. I have to get a job first, and then a house before we can settle down. But the school has started. I will miss my class, Ayo protested. I know how you feel. Why did you take me away from that place? You don't even have your own house, the boy blurted. You like it there at your grandma's? Mike asked, his eyelids batting. He tried not to get angry with the boy. They hardly knew each other, and they'd both been through a lot. Ayo stared at his father. Answer me, Ayo. You like your grandmother? You like the place, the school they put you in? You want to go back there? He asked quietly. Ayo knew that it wasn't a pleasant question. I don't know, Daddy, he said and burst into tears. Mike felt ashamed. He drew the boy into his arms and hugged him tight. Everything will be all right. We'll be fine. I promise you. I promise you. Mike hugged the boy for what seemed like ages. He promised him he would make it all up to him. His heart quivered as he tried to imagine what the boy must have been through. His phone rang, jolting the two out of their reverie. He looked into Ayo's face as the latter hurriedly cleaned up in a bid to be composed. Mike picked his handset, the Nokia N90, and was shocked to see the caller was Sandra. He allowed it to ring a few more times as he tried to make up his mind whether to answer it or not. Yes, Sandra, what do you want? He barked. Ayo looked at him longingly and he looked back, speaking purposely into the phone. Ayo, go meet your auntie Adobe. Let her give you breakfast. He knew Adobe had gone to work. Yes, Daddy. Say hello to Mommy. Ayo says hello. Sandra was flabbergasted. She had tried that line throughout the previous day, no luck. She had just decided to try again early in the morning. Only one dial and she'd gotten through. She decided not to lose him to any temper and ignored the insinuation about another woman. Hello, darling, she said sweetly. How are you? Very fine. I was worried sick about you. Where have you been? How could you just leave me in Calabar like that? She sounded victimized. What do you want? If you're not, oh, darling, what is the meaning of this? I should be upset, not you. I, hello? Mike caught the line and threw the handset across the bed. He had missed an appointment he had with the first branch manager and was a little rattled. Adobe had convinced her manager to give audience to Mike. It was simply to look at his proposal. Mike knew it was a good proposal, but would the bank manager have faith in it? He was shocked to discover things had changed greatly. 15 years earlier, when he'd taken his risks, bank had been too eager to assist. But it'd been to more than 10 banks now, and none was eager to do anything. They told him the house in Elisha was not a good collateral. One bank that had been willing to loan him a 1 million naira, accepting the house as collateral, had later balked, asking him to bring a deposit of half a million first. If I had half a million, mister, I won't be here. Mike had replied angrily and walked out of the bank manager's office. Adaobi had had to put her job on the line to even fix an appointment with her manager, and now he'd missed it. The phone started to ring again. Yes, can we talk? Can we meet to talk? She sounded sober. Where and when? I can come to wherever you are now if it's okay. No, it's not okay. Well, can you come to where I am? And where are you? Uncle Femi's house. Right, Mike chuckled. And more poll officers there waiting to bundle me into a van and smuggle me across the border to a Togo prison. Mike, don't be ridiculous. You stop, he yelled. I'm not afraid of you or Femi. I don't need you, and you don't need me. And by the way, stop calling because I'm through with you. Mike snapped. You can't say that, Mike. What about my son, our son? We still have a marriage. I'm sorry I didn't come to visit. I was not told where you were, and I came as soon as I knew, she said tearfully. Mike allowed her to finish. Did I hear you say marriage? You mean to tell me that you did not get a proper divorce? Sandra, Joe, Lee, Chan? He barked. Oh no, Sandra burst into tears. Have a good life, madam. No, please, please don't hang up, please, she sniffed. Let me explain. There was silence on the other side. This is what happened. Uncle Femi said he was going to appeal your being treated as a political prisoner and not being incarcerated in Lagos. They told him not to bother. They said Kirikiri was overcrowded, that even Ilesha prison was overcrowded. That's why they took you to Calabar. I didn't know. So Uncle Femi introduced me to Jolie. That Jolie had influence with the president and Cross River State governor. Chinese government entered a pact with Cross River State, and Jolie's company was to handle the contract. It is a very big electrification contract using the Calabar River to generate electricity for Cross River State. The contract is close to 1 billion naira. Can you imagine? Michael swallowed, suffering to keep quiet. So I started seeing Jolie. We went to the Cross River governor together several times, but Jolie only talked about business. Then he suggested we marry that it would be easier to get you out that way. Mike couldn't take anymore. Are you out of your mind? What do you really take me for? You lied that you didn't know I was in Calabar, but you'd been fornicating with a Chinese to get me out of Calabar prison. Are you a fool? Now, listen to me carefully. Don't ever call this number or any of my contacts again. Ayo is fine and will be. You have a marriage, keep it. I'm going to file for divorce properly. Oh, Mike, please, please. You never loved me or my sons. You stalked and carefully waited for me to fall, and you pounced on me to destroy me. I know the full story. Your part, Femi's part, everyone's. Well, I'm going to die another day. Your plans failed. How many people get sentenced to life imprisonment for being drunk while driving, having a head on collision that wasn't their fault? Mike, shut up and listen to me. You loved me so much, you married another man while I'm still alive. You're taking for granted that God can intervene in the affairs of men. He did, he did in this man's case. He thumped his chest. You are the fool, you're a liar, and you're a loser. You put my son in a public school while globe-trotting. His clothes are all old, small, and shabby. Now you talk about son and marriage. You don't have any more here. Please, goodbye and good luck. Mike hung up without waiting for her and switched off his handset. He slumped back on the bed and sighed. He needed to call Adaobi and try and fix another appointment. Though Ayo had caused the forfeit, he was worth the wait. Throat clearing and kombucha drinking. So, quick one. I discovered that this kombucha We can't see it. I mean, I didn't bring the bottle, but this kombucha is what in those days was called Kagasok tea. Anyone remember that thing? Kagasok tea. When you see kombucha, that's Kagasok tea. It's healthy. Chapter 38. Hello? Is this Mr. Mike Dabi? It is. Who is speaking, please? My name is Sani Ngida. I'm a special assistant to Chief Tunde Ojo. Of course, Mr. Ngida, so pleased to meet you. Mike sat up suddenly, cheering up. Alariwo. Alariwo special assistant. Hi, Chief. He's fine. He wanted me to confirm your number, Sani Ngida said with polished Hausa lilt. This is it. I've tried to reach Chief for almost 4 months. I guess he has changed his number. Probably. I hear he's now in Abuja. What is Chief's position now? Mike asked. He's right Nigeria's representative at the UN. I will let him know I had a conversation with you, Sani Ingida said politely. Is this your number? It is. Greet Chief for me. Tell him I hope to meet with him soon, Mike said anxiously. I will. Good day, sir. Good day to you too, sir, Mike said and watched his handset as Sani Ngida hung up. Alariwo. They came a long way. Alariwo was the chieftaincy title his citizens gave him when he was governor and it had stuck. Tunde Ojo was from Elisha, but his ancestors had settled in Lagos and had claimed citizenship in Lagos State. Very few people knew of their Ijesha roots. The family was very large and rich, and when Tunde decided to run for governorship, everyone in the family supported, but not with their wealth. The wealth wasn't all that much anyway. It was just that the family had acquired lots of lands in the Agege area of Lagos, and the lands had appreciated tremendously. But then the family had also grown, and what Sunday could use of the family wealth for his campaign was insignificant. He had a buoyant civil engineering career, but he couldn't clean out his company capital to pursue a political career. Then one demon chased Tunde, his Ijisha lineage. All his other rivals were Isaleko, Badagry, and Ikorodu indigenes. His sponsors had sold all out on the primaries, and he was almost down and out. Even company funds had to come out of the coffers. Mike followed the Ijesha boy who wants to rule Lagosians story for so long it began to rankle. He walked into the offices of Tunde's engineering company one day and asked to see the managing director. Tunde had never met Mike, but he heard about him severally. It piqued Tunde's interest that the property merchant had come to see him. It was a few weeks to the primaries. If he could win at the party level, he could win at the elections. The state loved his party, but he was hung up. He had run out of cash and had gone back to his engineering, trying to see how he could pull himself back together. The Ijesha thing had cost him so much more than he'd imagined. His friends, family, and sponsors had stopped pumping in money into the campaign. Someone told him, maybe you should have gone to contest this thing in Osun State. But he had never identified with his ancestral town. Not even his father or grandfather had. Good morning, Mr. Darby. To what do I owe this August visit? Good morning, Your Excellency, Mike replied. Tunde's outstretched hand for a shake went cold. He withdrew his hand and sat down. Had this man come to mock him? Some had, teasing and cracking jokes and saying they meant no offense. But he'd never met Mike Dabi before. Why would he come to his office and do that? I take it you don't like that, Mike said and took a seat. But you have to get used to it. You are the next governor of this state. Are you a soothsayer, sir? I believe in you. I believe in your mandate. I want you to be my governor. If wishes were horses, sir, beggars will gallop. Tunde smiled, looking at the relaxed tycoon in front of him. He thought of asking Mike for financial aid, a loan, anything that would push the campaigns back into action. He had not officially pulled out of the race, but the news was everywhere that he'd gone dry. I don't want to waste your time, Your Excellency. I don't want to waste mine either. I want to know how much you need to continue and win your campaign at the primaries and at the polls, Mike said matter of factly. Goosebumps covered Tunde. This couldn't be true. Stranger than fiction, they say. Is this going to be a loan? Let's have the figures first. I don't know, Mr. Dabi. For the primaries, maybe 10, 15 million more. At the polls, I don't know. Tunde shook his head. Mike stared at him longer than a second. Are you serious about this job at all, Your Excellency? It was softly spoken, but it hit Tunde square on the face like a dirty slap. He began to answer, stammered, and stopped. He looked at Mike and nodded. How much have you spent so far? In excess of 15 million naira. I need to buy two or three more people. One of them wants to step down with the condition that she will be my deputy. I don't want her, Tunde said, his confidence triggered. Okay, we'll slate 30 million naira for the primaries. I believe that once you win the primaries, the polls should be a landslide. We won't take chances, though it's most likely, Tunde said. I'm going to put my own 50 million naira stakes, and I will raise another 100 million naira on the side. And if we need to spend more, we will, Mike said, looking pointedly at Tunde. What do I owe you for this? Do you want a seat in the cabinet or something? Contracts? Why don't we end the swearing in celebrations first before we talk about that? Mike smiled. A seat in the cabinet? For what? He wondered. The money had done wonders. Rivals fell like a pack of cards. Tunde had a landslide victory, but never, in accordance with Mike's wishes, disclosed the name of his new sponsor. Mike refused to make demands. He had drained himself to help Tunde, and the latter knew. When the housing projects began at Lekki, at Ikorodu, at Ijesha, all over Lagos, only one company was approved to handle the contracts. The contracts were worth hundreds of millions of naira. Mike insisted Tunde should give at least one other company, but the request fell on deaf ears. He made more than he invested in the governor. Tunde spent only one term as governor, but did much more than any governor before him. It was the new appointment that drew him away from his beloved state. Alariwo called later in the evening. Mike, how are you? Alariwo, I'm fine. So good to hear from you, Mike said softly. Will his friend be a friend in need? I'm at Sheraton night right now. I'm catching a flight at about midnight to Berlin. Can you come now? We can have dinner together at the restaurant. It was 6 p.m. I'll be with you in 1 hour, Mike said. The only way he could meet the time was to board a commercial motorcycle. He hurriedly told Ayo where he was going and left. After about a month of staying with Mrs. Okoro in the main house, he'd been offered full use of the boys' quarters. The rooms, which had been occupied with old stuff, had been cleared and one room had been made available. Mrs. Okoro had insisted that they still took all their meals in the main house. You go and sleep with Auntie Adelby. I may not come back tonight, he told Ayo. Yes, Daddy, Ayo said quickly and followed his daddy out. Over the months, he'd grown fond of the man, and his daddy had managed to enroll him in a very small private school in Ikoyi. Let me drink something. That's my sorry about that. Mhm. Chapter 39. The weather was bright and beautiful as it usually was when it wasn't raining in May. Cost was at work and doing his usual business, making money for other people while stacking his away as though he was innocent. From the onset, he had decided not to use any of his knowledge of money laundering or currency printing. Too risky, he usually told his colleagues. But he had an invisible training school where he coached those who had a flair for risk taking in that field. It was a highly successful venture. Money laundering was big business in Uluwole. So was getting university certificates of schools abroad. Costs stuck to training and networking. The money was slower, but the risk was less. He was 11 years old when the police came to their house, ransacking and destroying things. They arrested his parents and carted them both off to jail. His 13-year-old sister left the house and never came back. Cause swore never to be caught by any uniformed man. His younger brother, aged 7, had stayed with him, and both of them, over the years, had roughed life together through the thick and the thin. 25 years later, they were still together, the only family they both knew and had, and they stuck to each other like leeches. No word had ever come from their parents, and Cos, frankly, was not bothered. Growing up in the slums with the knowledge of his parents' illegal businesses fueled his anger and aggression. Once, hired assassins came to their house, raped his sister, and threatened to wipe out the whole family. They had killed his only senior brother to drive the message home. He knew he would never lead the kind of life his family led. He honed his skills to perfection and took less risky and shorter cuts than his mates. When he got married to a Lebanese woman he met in Germany, he settled her in his house in London. She never visited him in Nigeria, never knew the sort of business her husband and father of her two children was involved in. Carlo got his first break by changing his looks and identity. Cos took to him and said he had great potentials. You are too handsome and polished to do this business. I can get you set up in another way, Cos said. I have this idea I've been nursing for some time, and I think you'll be the man for the job. Carlo introduced him to male prostitution. prostitution. Well, not the way it sounded anyway, it was more urbane. They were called escorts. Carlo's physique trained the profession. He was tall, fair, complexioned, easily mistaken for an Easterner and quite well spoken, as opposed to Cos, whose mere 5 feet 6 height, slender build, and outward softness helped him in concealing how dangerous he was. Carlo, on the other hand, was the ladies' man, and he'd been around enough well to do women to know what they liked. He was a whooping 6 feet 3, and Cos helped the fat accumulations in his body turn to taut muscle with rigorous physical grooming. Because of the heat that was on in the country, Cos had advised him, if you don't contact any of your old cronies, you can become very rich in a matter of months. And he had been right. Carlo changed his name and his story. He was now an orphan whose parents died in a tragic auto accident. His story sold all of the time. He escorted mostly the rich women who needed a little diversion from married life. Soon, his life was back on track, the wrong way though. A percentage of his earnings went to his agent and manager, of course. Soon, the business prospered in their hands and they had a healthy network. Cos and Carlo were at a society party where one of the other new boys was escorting a minister's first wife. The boy, Ade, a young graduate of adult education, was eager to please and chatted on bidding till Cos had to signal him to stop. In their business, the less the women know about you, the better for you. The relationships were not meant to be deep. Amongst the guests at their table, Carlo noticed the woman he was truly attracted to. She was older, of course. Who's she? He asked Cos. Her name is Arike Williams, Femi Williams' wife. She's a beauty, Carlo said. Cos looked at the other man, amused. Seems your taste in women has experienced an insurgency, he smiled. 5 years of eating the forbidden fruit has given me a taste for it, Carlo laughed. He'd visited his mother in prison shortly before she died a few months earlier. It had closed the chapter of his life. I want to meet her. He looked at the woman who sat with and chatted infrequently with a louder woman. I can arrange it. She's a very unhappy woman and could use the distraction. I wouldn't want to merely distract her, Carlo said. Before Cos could voice his exclamation, Carlo continued, who's the woman with her? A lover? No, hell, that's Chan's wife, Sandra. They come a long way. I'd love to meet Arike, Carlo said in a familiar tone. He knew Cos would introduce them. It was business for him. A percentage of everything Carlo got was Cos's. The arrangement favored both men. I can do it now. I have some jobs I'm doing for her, and I need to catch up on them with her. Cos shrugged. What sort of jobs? Carlo asked suspiciously, and Cos laughed. Business with Cos could never be clean, except his call center in Uluwole, which in itself was shady for the mere fact that it was Cos. I'm developing some properties for her, a house at Ikorodu, and another in her mother's village in Edo State. It's a very private arrangement. We discussed discreetly. Like you, she trusts me. Cos sneered. Introduce us. Not tonight. I don't like the Chan woman. Fix a date, please, Carlo said urgently. It's good for me. Why not? If Arika had known what the men were talking about, she might have taken a walk, or lost her temper, got drunk or rude, or do something to someone. But she smiled from across the table from time to time to Cos and behaved like a gentlewoman. When Carlo started pestering her about a relationship, she thought it was for the usual reasons, a young man looking for a rich, well to do woman to spoil him. But after months of consistent squibbling, her walls began to come down. She just wasn't sure she could be discreet enough. Let's take a break. We have three more chapters to read. I'm just going to sit here, catch my breath, and drink kombucha. I think I've almost finished this, so I'll just add water. Mm, I've finished it, so I'll add water. To the ice, I try to drink 3 of this a day. That's like 3 liters of water. It helps me. It reduces the food I'm eating. I'm not an advisor. I'm not a nutritionist, so I'm just sharing what. Don't say that Simi said you should drink water. Now you are feeling sick. Okay, chit chatting over. Chapter 40. Alariwo sat with two men on a table for four in the restaurant of the Sheraton Hotel, Ikeja. He was a man in his late 40s, dressed in expensive wolf brocade kaftan and trousers. He wore a native Hausa cap and could be easily mistaken for a Hausa man. Mike located him and walked briskly to him. One of the men stood up and offered his seat. The other man stood also, greeted, and sat back. The man was dressed identical to Alariwo. Alariwo stood and pulled Mike into a bear hug. It's been long, my friend, he said. Your Excellency, Mike said, his voice choked with emotion. Sonny, please call a waiter to take our order, Alariwo said. The young man who had offered his seat to Mike nodded curtly and left them. Shay, first thing in the morning, I want you to fax the details of your last employment to me in Berlin. If you like, don't do it. And I will say to the other man, Uncle, I will. I'm sorry it wasn't in the envelope. The man said, "My nephew, Sheyi Cregan." And I turned to Mike to make the introductions. They exchanged pleasantries. A waiter came and took their orders. "So, Mike, where have you been? What happened to you?" "It's a long story," Mike sighed. "Femi said you had relocated to Calabar or something like that. But nobody could trace you. Not until one of my boys saw you in the news." "Femi, sir, is a traitor," Mike said and narrated his ordeal. "That is unbelievable," Alariwo exclaimed. Sheyi shook his head in wonder. "Why would Femi do that?" Alariwo asked. "It should be for my wealth. My wife and Femi took over everything, closed down my business schools, sold my properties, took over my business, and wrecked it. I don't want to recount." Drinks were served, they sipped slowly. "Femi, why? So what are you doing now?" "I've been able to get a few properties to my account, one for sale and about three for lease. It's been so slow, but I'm pushing it. I was so sure." Mike shrugged. He could remember the 6 months he gave Effiong to repay the bank loan. 4 months had lapsed over the 6 month deadline, and all he could afford was a cheap private school for Ayo. "Look, my junior brother is deputy governor of Osun State right now, and the incumbent governor here is my man. I'm going to ask you the same question you asked me years ago. Are you serious about this job at all?" Alariwo asked. Mike nodded. He couldn't forget the question he'd asked or the response he'd gotten. "So, then, let's make history." Alariwo laughed and raised his glass to chair. Tears lumped into Mike's throat as his glass clanked with his friends. He'd had so much faith that Alariwo would not let him down, like all his other friends who'd refused to help and refused to admit it. The problem had been that he couldn't locate his man. And I'm going to drink water again. I don't know if this is because I drink a lot of water now. I'm always wanting to drink water. All right, let's move on with it. Chapter 41. Sandra crossed and uncrossed her leg, pretending to be more upset than she really was. The new year had started so badly, she was ready to sacrifice anyone that crossed her path. As for those who'd been forgiven earlier, she was ready to withdraw her generosity. It was one of those afternoons in March when you caused all those responsible for global warming. The sun was up in its full fury, sparing no one except for the well to do who moved from their air conditioned homes to air conditioned cars to air conditioned offices. Sandra still qualified anyway, but the heat in her life was beyond physical air conditioning. Femi entered his plush office and dropped his wig and gown neatly on the cedar hanger. His office still spelled Wealth, wealth, though life was getting rougher on the edges. Since Mike got out, he'd lost two major cases and a couple of big customers due to the bad publicity Mike's retrial gave him. A leading oil company had withdrawn the retainership he had with them, and another multinational was threatening the same. "Uncle, hello," Sandra greeted sulkily. "How are you?" Femi asked. He didn't know she was back in the country. The silly girl, he thought. It had been a rough day in court for him, and she was the last person he wanted to see. "I'm not fine." She looked at him, pouting. He thought as much. He wasn't ready to babysit anymore. He'd had enough of her. "When did you arrive?" Femi asked pleasantly, sitting in one of the high backed chairs meant for visitors. A little politeness was good for both of them. "Will you like a drink?" He punched in a number on the desktop intercom and backed orders for juice and gin to be brought in. "I came in last night, slept at airport hotel." Sandra looked at him. "Well, tell me all that's been happening to you. How's your husband?" He knew she traveled out abruptly 2 days after the call got through to Mike, but he'd refused to bother himself with the whys. The less questions you ask, the less lies you'll be told. Femi's secretary brought in orange juice with gin and 2 glasses with ice. She poured the juice into the glasses and then measured a bottle's cap each of gin into each glass. The two kept quiet till she left before they continued with their conversation. Jolie left me, Sandra said, as though she was reporting what happened to someone else. And Femi asked dryly, I'm back. I never wanted the marriage. I'm thinking of going to find Mike, beg him. Mike, Femi sighed. What about him? You look like you know something. Mike got a divorce with you. He even published it in the dailies. At least I saw it in 2 dailies, full page. How? Why? Is that legally possible? Sandra jumped up, her displeasure real for a change. You didn't think he would take you back, did you? Femi's voice dripped with mockery. I didn't think he wouldn't. Have you seen him since? No, we live in different worlds now. We don't move in the same circles anymore. Of course, if he needs my help, I'll be ready to give it. They've not even had a chance meeting since Mike's release. He'll die before he asks you for help. Sandra hissed. It's pride, and he'll just suffer for nothing. Pride and your wife's deadly tongue, Sandra lashed, going for the kill. No more alliances, she thought. It was payback time. Arike, what did you hear? Femi's tired eyes fled. Everything. She told Mike every single thing. Mike knows every detail of the lawsuit, the sole secret gifts you gave to the judge and police officers. He even knows that we decided the location of his incarceration together. You know, it's interesting that he even knows we had been planning a different setup altogether before fate took over, she said saucily. And how do you know? Mike told you. He narrowed his eyes. Sandra was a lying, convincing deceiver. She could concoct anything just to have you in her palms. Not in many details. Jolie told me. That's why I believe it. Auntie Arika told him everything about me, you, about Mike, Jolie. I don't believe you. How did Jolie know I was married to Mike? How did my wife see Jolie? Femi stood up and checked his watch. He was thinking of going home. Arike would be back from the departmental store she owned on Allen. They bought the departmental store from its original owners and turned it inside out. It became the place to shop within a few months. Jolie told me he spent 3 days in Nigeria between his long trips in Hong Kong, Tokyo, New York. He filed for divorce when he got back. Sandra swallowed, unable to believe the deal she'd been caught. I got nothing, Uncle. She suddenly burst into tears. 3 days in Nigeria and my wife saw him. How can that be? They never really got along. Had she gone to look for him? He looked at Sandra and squeezed his brows in thought. Her sniveling irritated him. Sandra, pull yourself together. Do you know where Mike is now? Sandra shook her head. Do you know what he's up to? Does he plan to sue us or anything? Does he have evidence, confessions, anything? Femi asked as though afraid. Sandra looked at him, terrified. That lawyer that appealed his case is very good. Do you think I'm going to find Arike? Femi headed for the door angrily. Uncle, wait, I'm coming with you. Sandra jumped up, her voice clear. She hid a small smile. It was time for Arike to pay for her foolish babbling. Arika had just finished preparing dinner when Femi burst in through the kitchen exit. He was early. Sandra went to the front entrance and pressed the bell. Arika, on her way upstairs to change, decided to get the door. Oh, Sandra, hi. When did you come in? Arika hugged her warmly as she let her in. Just last night. Is Uncle back? Sandra smiled sweetly. Just then, Femi barged into the sitting room. Honey, welcome, Arike. Give me one good reason why I should not cut out your tongue today, he beat out. I don't understand. What happened? The woman looked from her husband to Sandra, shocked. Did you see Jolie Chan when he came to Nigeria? Femi asked, looking around as though confused about his whereabouts. He came into the departmental store while I was there. It was purely a chance meeting, Arike said quickly. She knew there was trouble. Femi grabbed a porcelain doll, one of the dozens that graced the top of the mantle close to him, and flung at Arike. It caught the lower part of the left side of her chin, the sharp edge cutting a deep gash into the soft flesh there. The doll fell and broke into pieces. Arike shrieked in fear and pain, clutching her jaw. Sandra looked away, irritated. You had a chance, didn't you, to talk and talk and talk. Femi started to unbuckle his belt. Blood from the cut seeped through Arike's fingers. The first drop splattered on the polished marble floor. What did he tell you? Arike feigned ignorance. Her whole body shook in fear of what he could do to her. You're a fool to ask me questions. Femi flung the belt. It landed on her right shoulder. Subsequent swipes took turns all over her body. Sandra leaned over the bar and poured herself a shot of brandy. She gasped at each swipe of Femi's belt, but did nothing to stop it. When Arike knocked on the door of her mother's house in Isolo that night, it was almost midnight. Her eyes were swollen shut and her lower lip was split in two. She was sore all over, bruised and battered. She hadn't noticed when Femi switched from his belt to his boots. She'd faintly heard the usual sounds: Mary, the house girl, crying in the kitchen, Sandra at the bar whining, Uncle, stop, stop it. She didn't know when it stopped either. He never succeeded in getting her to be unconscious, but she'd gone numb. She stayed balled up on the marble floor till all the sounds around her ceased. When she finally crawled to her feet, she staggered to the stairs, picked her handbag from her dressing room, and walked all the way back down the stairs and out of the house. When Femi woke up in the morning, he would find out she'd gone and he would never find her. She'd made sure of that. Harika's mother burst into tears that she saw her daughter's condition. Harike had called her just before she boarded a motorcycle so she would be expected. How could he do this to you, Harike? How could Femi do this to you? The elder woman wailed. Mommy, it's over. This is the last time. Harike dropped into a settee in her mother's humble residence. Oh, is it a curse to have wealth? Femi loved you when he had no money. Mommy, leave all that. I have to go to a clinic in the morning. If Femi calls, tell him I have left him. He should come and find me if he cares. But what are you going to do? Will you be living here with me? Femi will never allow that. How will you cope on your own? Mommy, I gave you a small suitcase to keep for me, Arike said slowly with pain. Her mother nodded vigorously. I need it now. My life is in there, Arike sighed. My passport is there. My house documents, about $1,000 cash, important things. All my bank documents are there also. I have three houses in three different countries. In fact, in the Gambia, I have an active life. I have everything I left in Femi's house there: cars, furniture, clothes, everything. Even a big supermarket like the one here. Once I see a doctor early in the morning, I'm going to one of my houses, either in Gambia or South Africa. I can give up everything I have here because I had always known that Femi and I are finished. Not because of the money, but because of the vanity. I have a house in this Lagos Femi never knew. What about your children? They'll be fine, mommy. I need to rest. Good night. Please get the suitcase for me. I have a few changes of clothes and toiletries there too. She placed a call as soon as she was alone. It was to Carlo Ahigmagwe. I'm free now, she told him with a small voice. Some water. Water. I should give us a joke about that water and water. No, I won't give that joke. I will not. That would be disgraceful to me. Okay. All right, let's read one more chapter today and then we'll finish this book tomorrow. Scent of Water. I can't believe it. I think I've read it. It took 7 days, 6 days to read. We are finishing this book tomorrow. Don't miss that final read tomorrow, and I may have some news for us. Okay. Chapter 42. Esam looked at the report at the head of the child's bed thoughtfully. She had just passed her examinations and was elated. If there was anything her life had yielded, it was a swift move in her career. She was now a consultant pediatric surgeon. The child would need a minor surgery, and one of her colleagues had called her to observe the 7-year-old boy for a second opinion. The boy had a rare condition of hernia. It was good they had discovered it quickly and brought him in for surgery. Esam moved close to the boy and examined him for vital signs. She took a few notes and patted the boy's cheeks. "You'll be all right," she said to the boy and smiled at his mother, who sat by the bed with a gentle frown. "Thank you, doctor," the woman said. Another woman across the ward waved at her and she turned to answer the call. A nurse walked over to her and told her she had a visitor downstairs. "I'll be a minute," she told the nurse and walked over to the woman who'd waved at her. "How are we today?" she asked cheerfully. "Doctor, we are fine. No, I wanted to ask if we could go home today," the woman asked. Esam picked the report hanging at the head of the bed and studied it. "Your doctor is Dr. Query. He is out of town." Esam looked at the chubby 3-year-old girl playing with her doll on the hospital bed. "He was supposed to come in and discharge us this morning, but it's almost noon now and we haven't seen him," the mother said. Esam tickled the baby who'd been on admission for pneumonia. "I'll call Dr. Ugochi. She's in his team and I'm sure she will discharge you," Esam smiled. "Thank you, doctor." Esam headed outside, smiling at the other patient she had checked earlier. She was in the mood to smile. She hadn't been able to stop all day since she got her exam result. She was the only female of the 5 that had passed overall. 40 of them had done the examination. She stopped at the nurse's desk and asked about the visitor. At the lobby downstairs, Dr. Ephraim asked about the death report of Ignatius. "I told him I'll get it from you," the nurse said. "Oh, the child with the sixth-degree burns?" Esam squeezed her eyes shut. She never was able to get used to the death of a child. "Yes, doctor." Ask Dr. Precious. She handled the case. She was in the doctor's room in a few minutes ago. And please tell anyone asking for me that I'm downstairs for a few minutes. "Okay, doctor. Thanks." Esam took the 2 flights of stairs down, pushing thoughts of Ignatius out of her mind. The 10-year-old had been stranded in his father's mechanic workshop when a loose wire sparked and the shed caught fire. Firemen had gotten there too late to save the boy's life. The lobby was an open space they'd converted by keeping benches for visitors. Her advance halted abruptly. There were only 2 people in the white space. One was a young sick woman who put her head down between her legs and breathed hard. The other was Mike Dabi. He stood tall and straight with his hands in his trouser pockets, well over 6 feet, and gazed at the stairway. She'd never thought he was so tall. He was strong and healthy and very handsome, with a strong, angular, clean shaven face. His skin looked clean and smooth and firm. He wore a multicolored striped shirt opened at the throat with black trousers and loafers. Their outfit looked perfect. What attracted her most was the lazy smile that lingered about his lips. "Esam," he said in a near whisper and walked toward her. "Is this you?" she gasped. "I think so." He stopped just in front of her, not touching her, but doing much more. "What brings you to Calabar?" She stood awkwardly, gazing up into his eyes. "Business," he said simply. "That's great. It's good to see you. Can I hug you?" he asked. She remembered the last time he asked to touch her. Of course, she held her arms to him and they hugged. But it was very brief. He smelt of Hugo Boss. She had on her usual shore roll on, but the hospital and drug odor overpowered the roll on. He made a note to buy her perfume. Chanel number 5 or something strong and nice. Are you free now? I'm sorry, no. When did you come in? I came here straight from the airport. I'm staying at the Mirage Hotel. Wow, that's the best hotel east of the Niger. I heard so. I haven't even been there. He felt like grabbing her hand and hugging her so tight. Well, that means you'll have to go and do some business first. What time are you closing here? He asked. 5. I'm not on call this week. Thank goodness. Tell you what, can we meet at the hotel, say 7 p.m. for dinner? Okay. She thought of midweek service. I will sacrifice 2 days for him, she thought. I'll allow you to go back to your work, but be ready for a long night, he warned. Okay, she chuckled. I'll go and see Ephraim now, rest and wait for 7 p.m. to come. Don't keep me waiting. I won't. They walked quietly to the parking lot where his chartered taxi and driver waited for him. I'll see you later on, hon, he whispered. She waved and went back to the ward on butter legs. He looked so different, so nice. Mike first checked in at the Mirage before going to find Ephraim. He told no one he was coming, even though he'd been in constant contact with his friend. It was a warm, sunny day, one that complemented Mike's gay mood. Ephraim was in his law library preparing for a very controversial land dispute. Amma had decided to bring him lunch when he called to cancel the lunch date they had. He was desperately trying to get her to leave so that he could concentrate when his secretary popped in his head and announced, Mr. Mike Dabi, sir. Mike! He jumped up seconds before Mike walked in. The two men hugged tight. Mike looked well and fresh. My friend, Mike. Amma came around and hugged him too. It's good to see you again. You guys have been in my heart. I just had to come and see you all. Ethan will be so shocked, Amma said excitedly. I've seen her already. The couple gasped, you have? Man, that was fast. Ephraim teased. Oh, so she knew you were coming and kept the secret, Amma challenged. She was just as surprised as you. I checked her at the hospital, Mike said and sat down. My God, it's so good to see you again, he sighed. It's been so long, almost 2 years now. So, how are your businesses and your son? Ayo is fine. They closed for vacation, so I took him to stay with his cousins in Oshogbo. My brother's children don't even know him. And businesses, he shrugged. I guess it's going on well. Thank God you are settling back, Amma said. I hope you are staying with us. I checked into the Mirage, but if I can't cope with the check after 2 weeks, I should find my way to your house, Mike teased. 2 weeks? The business you came for must be hot, Amma exclaimed. It is actually. I may even stay longer than that. Depends on my business partner, Mike said, a glint of mischief in his eyes. Well, we thank God for everything. At least you can have dinner with us tonight, Amma offered. Oops, no, I fixed dinner with my business partner tonight. But I'm still around. We'll have plenty of time together, Mike said. Amma excused the men to pick her children from school. I needed us to talk about the loan. Mike settled down with a film. Yeah, I've been paying change into the account, the interest actually. The manager was not very pleased with the position, but he wanted the account to be active. Mike had kept mum about the loan, and Ephraim had begun to get worried because he couldn't foot the bill. The bank manager had started threatening to take over Esam's house, and Ephraim was ready to lay the cards plainly on the table. Mike had to do something tangible about the loan. Of course, I understand. I'm sorry I've been quiet. I wanted to be sure before I bring it up. I want to write off the debt on this trip. Oh, that's great. I think we can go to the bank together and settle that. How soon do you want? Ephraim was impressed. Your time. I'm here for as long as Esam will have me, he said. She's the business you came for, eh? Right, pal, and she's the business partner. Mike chuckled. She just passed her fellowship exam. We got the news last night. Thank God. We have a lot to celebrate then. Mike smiled. So, let's see. Right now, I'm all yours, Mike shrugged. If he was more impressed, I'm very glad. I want us to wipe the debt clean once, so I will cash the check in my bank and pay all into your accounts, Mike said. How much altogether? That's right, Ifem said. Give or take, it should be about 2.4 million naira. I don't know how they calculate the COT, but and all. I made plans to pay 3 million naira. Please count the extra as a gift. No, please. Yes, I beg you. And there ends chapter 42. We will be finishing this book tomorrow. I promise. 12 noon Eastern, 6 p.m. Nigerian time. Please join me again. We'll be reading from verse chapter 43 to the end of the book. I really want to appreciate you. And tomorrow I may have some good news about this channel and my courses, but let's see. I'm going to end the streaming now. Thank you all for joining. Please, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Hit the bell so that you'll be notified when I'm coming live or I'm posting videos. Share this video, share my channel, like, please comment. Let's keep the conversations alive on this channel. I love you all. Thank you so much. And if you want to buy your gadgets or you want to, shoot anything, you need cameras, you need gears for anything, click on that link in the description. It's my link for the Ulanzi website. Go ahead and you will get some beautiful, beautiful perks, discounts by using my link to buy your stuff. Till tomorrow. See you. Bye. Thank you. I love you. End stream.